Now, a lot has changed since we were last visited by the Prime Minister's sister, Rachel Johnson. Just 3 days before the country plunged into a national lockdown in March last year. It feels like a century ago. But anyway, Rachel joins us again today to tell us all about why she is embracing the term difficult woman. None of those around here, of course. We're nothing if not predictable. Hi, Rachel, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good, good. This is the name of your podcast, Rachel Johnson's Difficult Women. And I know you like a debate, so you won't mind me saying, I'm not sure whether we should be embracing the term difficult women. Why do you think we should?
Oh, I think being called difficult is a complete badge of honour. It's not an insult at all. Unless you're called difficult, you're seen as a pushover. And all the women I'm interviewing for my LBC podcast series are or have been or have had to be difficult to get anything done. And I called the podcast Difficult Women in honour of Theresa May because, as you will remember, Ken Clarke said off mic during an interview, I think it was on Sky News, he said, Theresa May, bloody difficult woman. And so, of course, the first person I wanted to launch my podcast was Theresa May, but true to Ken Clarke's description, she turned me down. She was a bloody difficult woman about it, but I'm hoping that she may watch Loose Women and she may yield eventually.
Well, we've got one difficult woman for you. There you go, Janet's waiting.
I'm difficult too, yeah. I'm proud to be difficult. But who have you interviewed so far, Rachel?
I've done Sasha Swire, who, remember, wrote that explosive diary of an MP's wife, and she gave us an audio exclusive, which was great. And Ian Dale, who's another presenter at LBC, complained that he'd asked her 3 times. She had endless bids, but I wheedled my way in, and she came into the studio and she gave a cracking podcast. I've interviewed Brenda Hale, she of the famous spider brooch, who said that my own brother was had acted unlawfully in proroguing Parliament, as you all remember, back in, was it 2020, in order to, in quotes, get Brexit done. I've got tons of people lined up. Who else am I doing? I'm doing Nadine Dorries.
You, Rachel, just for a minute. I read Sasha.
I want you to do it.
Oh,
hold on, Janet. I want you.
You'd say that, and I'm going to be exactly like Theresa May and say no, no, no. But I want to ask you about Sasha Swire's book, because I read it all the way through, The Diaries of a Political Wife, and she was horrible about Theresa May. She called her Old Ma May, which I found offensive in so many ways. I mean, as another, journalist that I really rate, don't you think that calling a Prime Minister Old Ma May just sucks?
I thought that was rude. She did have, she gave nicknames to everybody, and that was one of the things that I actually didn't particularly like about the book. But on the other hand, she was very frank about other people being rude about her. She said that David Cameron called her daughters, who are called Sienna and Saffron, Sauvignon and Chardonnay, because he thought that was rather common to have daughters called Sienna and Saffron. By the way, Janet, she called me a violent rotating column of hot air as well. But she came on my podcast.
Wow. Rachel, would you ever consider Kaye Simons as someone for your podcast?
Listen, I mean, media organisations all over the globe want to interview Kaye. And I'm sure she will do an LBC podcast at some point. It may be Nimco Ali's or it may be mine. And that's up to Kaye to decide.
But would you consider her to be one of your top of the list for being a difficult woman?
Kaye's delightful. And thank you for asking.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it, Rachel? Because when you're talking about older women, we're quite happy to adopt difficult woman as a term. But I think when you get to younger women, they're maybe not as comfortable. I mean, I think you've got a daughter of 26. Would you be saying to her, be a difficult woman?
I'm always encouraging her to be a difficult woman. I think the reason I haven't risen further in my own career, and Janet once told me that I'd managed to convert the minor achievement of editing a small circulation women's magazine into a national, something I should be proud of nationally. And she said, at least I've edited a national newspaper. I'll never forget that from Janet. I think you have to be difficult. I think Janet is actually a fantastic role model in this. She doesn't take prisoners. She probably asks for pay rises. My daughter, aged 26, 45 years after the Equal Pay Act, she still doesn't ask for a pay rise, whereas the man who joined the company at the same time has probably asked for 3. It still happens. You've got to be in quotes, difficult, which means simply asking for what the man is getting. And then you're called difficult.
You make a good point there, but one thing I'd like to ask you about your brother, and I know you'll be very reluctant to talk about him, is do you think there's a double standard at work here? Because Theresa May did get criticised and nitpicked over what she wore, her hair and everything else, and yet your brother has, to put it mildly, an incredibly colourful private life that preceded his current partner, and yet somehow he sails through, he's one of the lads, he's winning seats in the north. You know, we've got the blue wall where there used to be the red wall, all these Labour voters voting Tory. There is a double standard and it does make me cross. Don't you feel it too?
Well, I'm going to slightly hospital past that and just remind you what Angela Rayner said about this when asked exact same question, because people point out she had a baby at 16, she's a grandmother, she wears stompy vegan boots and all the rest of it. And she said, you know, why aren't you focusing on the Prime Minister who, you know, number of children, number of marriages, hair and suits and all the rest of it? And he as you say, he doesn't get scrutiny for those sorts of things. I think because that is who he is. It's, you know, he's never tried to hide anything. He's never tried to pretend he's anything else than who he is. And he's also resisted he's never used his private life on the public stage at all. For him, it remains private. And of course, it's a matter of speculation now he's Prime Minister. And I'm sure there is a double standard too.
Yes,
we
but
just
he
have
has
to live
used
with it.
legal restrictions to make sure it's private. He has resorted to lawyers and stuff like that to keep it private.
Listen, I think that you wouldn't ask him on Loose Women and talk to him about me. So I think I think we can draw it to a close on that note.
Oh, Rachel,
we
you're
would
not really
ask him on
surprised that
Loose
you've
Women.
been asked about your brother, the Prime Minister, surely. I mean, we're not going to be the first to have done that. But anyway, the podcast sounds really interesting. Yeah. Rachel Johnson's Difficult Women. And as I say, Janet is in negotiations. Her people will speak to your people.
I'll call your agent later, Janet.
Yeah, please provide Harry Styles as backup.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel.